Welcome, everybody, to our Martin Luther King Legacy Talk about the wonderful words that he created. And here you see Dr. King accepting the Nobel Prize. And not everyone gets the Nobel Prize, so this is an international award of his major significance in mankind's history. We are at InfoAge at Camp Evans. Here's our campus. Us being here is a miracle because there were forces that didn't want this to happen, but it happened in spite of that, in spite of tearing out the sewers, in spite of tearing out the electrical system, in spite of letting the pipes burst, in spite of letting the buildings filled with mold and lead-based paint problems. So lots of people came here and shared their time and their expertise and their funds to make this here so programs like this and many others can be enjoyed. We're so pleased and proud because we have the Black Excellence and Achievement exhibit, because this site was known as the Black Brain Center, informally all the way up to the Pentagon level, and now we're a stop on the new New Jersey Black History Trail, and that is super significant. And not only does it bring forward excellent things done, but it also gets us on state literature, and so it's good for us to reach people that don't hit our website. They may hit the site's website. And here are things that we're trying to bring forward. For years, people labored here of all backgrounds, and they were under the Secrecy Act, and they couldn't tell their families, nor could they tell their friends what they did, even if they were doing something of national significance, being part of a radar or a countermeasure device that they couldn't tell about, because if the enemy knew about it, they could use that against us. And so we're happy to be able to bring this forward. Right. Now, this has been a wonderful thing. It's been passing the baton, and it started all the way back in 1982 with Wilhelmina Mitchell. She did an article about Black leaders who contributed to communication achievements. That was picked up by Thomas Daniels a little later, and here's his watchwords about setting a blazing trail for people behind him. And then, thanks to the New Jersey Historical Commission, Professor Robert Johnson out of Framingham College was given a grant, and he did oral histories of many of the radar pioneers of color, and that is wonderful because sadly, most of those people are not available for interviews anymore. And so we've inherited that. Robert Johnson did articles, he did oral histories, he did a DVD, and now he's working on a book. And here's the baton pass. Now we want to pass that baton to a new team, and here are the team members. And, excellent examples of people who did things in spite of the times, in spite of a society that lacked perfection. And we can enable people and encourage people and feel the joy of sharing other people's achievements that improve our technology, our society, and our future. And we can even do things like encourage a young person or give them a smile or listen to them when they need to be heard, because not everybody's super duper, and not everybody's super duper all the time. They sometimes need a boost. And here's our InfoAge Wall of Honor, and it's great that we have 7 persons of color and 1 woman on this wall, and there are, each year we nominate 3 or 4 new people, so the wall is growing. All right. Dr. King did over 2,500 speeches, and here is Dr. King at Monmouth College, today's Monmouth University. And it was a great speech. You can hear it online. It's a nice overview speech. And he had it down. You know, being the grandson of a preacher, the son of a preacher, he came with, I guess, DNA that helped him through this. Now, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, he did his most famous speech, I Have a Dream. And part of why we're doing this is anybody under 50, one day a year, they'll hear I Have a Dream on the news, and that's it. That's all they'll hear, and they will miss things of significance and things that can help them in their life, whether their life be understanding of other persons in the society, or picking a mentorship up and using some of Dr. King's techniques to convey information to people who may help your cause, whatever it might be, and hopefully it's for good. Now, he didn't go to the steps and say, I have a dream. He had to develop this, and that's part of the message. Very few people can jump something right out of the box. You have to work towards it. So his first mention of a dream was in 1960, and it was just an American dream unfulfilled. And then that changed to the American dreams in 61 and 62 in various speeches. And then 2 months before the March on Washington, Dr. King used the I have a dream this afternoon, and then said, I have a dream 11 times in that speech. So he was ready to go. So not knowing he was going to use this on the steps, somebody urged him when it didn't seem he was connecting with the crowd. A lady behind him said, you know, Martin, the dream. And he went right into the dream, and you know, this is the pinnacle of his height. And again, we know there's more to Dr. King, and it's worth finding it out. And today, because of YouTube, you have hundreds of speeches to pick, some with even background music now.
Today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same: we want to be free.
It takes a lot of practice to be able to deliver a speech like that, with the tonal qualities and building to a crescendo, and a little later we'll talk about repeating words. And so Dr. King motivated a generation to change. And so what are our goals today? We have 7 of them, and you know, one, you have to appreciate his work. You have to admire his work. Like said before, things just don't happen. You have to work things to get them to evolve. So when the moment comes, you don't have to be brilliant, but you can have a moment of brilliance that can make a team achieve the goals. So you have to learn the speech techniques if you have a goal, and you can select Dr. King or Mahatma Gandhi, as Dr. King did, as your mentor. The mentor doesn't have to be flesh and blood. It can be a mentor you can pick, and now you can pick that mentor through YouTube. And Dr. King was a master craftsman of words. And here are some of the techniques he used. He used poetic language, and he had a nice voice and a nice pace that he used effectively. He painted a picture of how life could be in the future if you use his recommended techniques like nonviolent. He kept his speech focused so he didn't lose his audience with too many concepts. He used common language to relate to his audience that was good because you didn't want to lose people in highfalutin language, and he used communication to paint pictures with words, so that in a few words, people could get a better grasp of the concepts or the visions that he was trying to bring across. So note the tools of a master craftsman, and all of these are freely available to you. If you have a goal, you can revisit this, and on each of these, you can add the words. You can use poetic language. You can communicate with pictures. So that's up to you. Now, there's plenty of quotes of Dr. King, and they are awesome. Earlier we heard learn, baby, learn, earn, baby, earn. And a lot of things in life, you don't have to see the whole staircase to just take the first step. Because if you knew all the things, it might scare you away, right? But once you're in process, you can find a way to the goal. And one thing, you don't want to generate bitterness and hate. You want to go forward and sort of look at evil, but not paint people who are doing wrong things as evil. And there's so many quotes that this one popped up from the Jesuits, and so I grabbed like the first group of them. But there's web pages that have dozens upon dozens of Dr. King quotes. So, like we'll take, let's see. We need leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice. Not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity. That's a nice one. Okay. And now we're lucky to have speakers who will share some of their personal experience because they were there, and they can explain how Dr. King was a positive force in their life. So, Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon. I'm Willie Johnson, a 2016 inductee into the Wall of Honor here at InfoAge. I'm also a product of the South. I was born in Columbia, South Carolina in 1937, and I attended the segregated schools from grade 1 to grade 12. And after that, I attended the South Carolina State College, which is a historical black college located in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So I lived the life during these times, and the segregated South was very prominent. In preparing for this, I selected a speech that I think had a lot of impact on the movement of the civil rights movement. I selected the speech given by Dr. King, the first speech at the mass meeting at the Holt Street Baptist Church. This was a Montgomery Improvement Association meeting. Why was this meeting being held? On 1 December in 1955, Rosa Parks, a member of the Montgomery community, was arrested on the Montgomery public bus. Now, why was she arrested? She was arrested because of the Jim Crow laws that were in effect in the South starting back in the 1980s. These laws did not allow for, I'll read this, these laws mandated the separation of the races in practically every area of public life: schools, restaurants, buses, you name it. So Rosa was arrested because on the bus, she failed to give up her, it was a crowded bus, and she failed to give up her seat to a white man. So that was on the 5th. The community was very unhappy about this, and in the wake of that, the Montgomery Improvement Association was formed. On the 5th of December, there was a mass meeting that was held at another black church in which the association met, and they passed a resolution, and they selected or chose Dr. King to be the chairman of the association. Now, on that evening of the 5th, there was this mass meeting at the Hull Street Baptist Church, which held a lot of people, thousands of people. There were people in the sanctuary, people downstairs, people outside, all of this leading up to this proposed protest of the buses in Montgomery. Now, the speech that I am talking about, Dr. King really was to his goal was to generate enough enthusiasm into the crowd to get this movement going. Now, while the goal was to get the crowd moving and moving towards approving the resolution and then engaging in the protests, he wanted to get the crowd excited, but he didn't want to get them too excited because he wanted this to be a peaceful, non-protest protest. And I've selected some of his words from that speech that more or less speaks to that. So there comes a time when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression. And I think we can all relate to that. If the bully or somebody's beating up on you, you get to a point where you just have to react. The second one is the only weapon that we have in our hands this evening is the weapon of protest. That's all. There weren't a lot of options as to what the community could do, in fact, to get get the rights that they are seeking to be able to go to integrated schools, sit in the place you want on the bus, etc. The last one I've selected is when the history books are written in the future, somebody will have to say, there lived a race of people, a black people, fleecy locks and black complexion, a people who had the morals, courage to stand up for their rights. And certainly a lot of this history is in the books. However, now a lot of that is under attack right now with people proposing book bans, discussions about what about slavery and the history of the civil rights movement can be taught in schools. All right, the good news is that the protests lasted 362 days. At the end of the protests, because of actions in the courts, the buses were integrated and people were able to ride on the bus. At least black people were able to sit on the bus and ride without having to worry about getting up for white folks or anything like that. And one of the things about this particular speech in this movement is that this probably was a pivotal point in the civil rights movement, and it actually put, I think, Dr. King certainly into a leadership role in that movement. No, I'm happy. As I said, I'm a product of the South. I did a lot of traveling back and forth, north and south, a lot of traveling on the public buses in Columbia, and it's a joy to be able to go back now and to ride as we want, and the wonderful transportation system that allows all of us to be able to go and do as we please is wonderful, and we can thank this particular protest as a lead into making that happen. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Hello, I'm Herman Red, and I am on the wall also, which is very nice, and I appreciate that. My background is that I am a product of the South. I was born in Danville, Virginia, and lived in the little city down there and in the country down there. But one of the things that I do remember from the good old days was that we had colored water fountain. So you come in on the bus, something, and you would at the bus stations and around anywhere you wanted, there were white water fountains and colored water fountains. We hadn't invented black yet, so color was the thing. But it was just strange, and we had restaurants, the same. Restaurants are the same thing. Colored restrooms and others. So so you recognize the inherent prejudices and segregation that went on in those days. I also was fortunate in growing up. I grew up in Baltimore for the most part in terms of school and everything. And one of the things that happened as a result of Dr. King's activity and everything was that we did have a Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, one of the technical high schools. But Baltimore was segregated. Schools were segregated also. And the thing with the Thurgood Marshall and his team came to town to they filed a suit against the Baltimore school system, and they pointed out the terrible inadequacies of not allowing kids to attend these better schools, and also to integrate the schools. So Thurgood Marshall was one of the highlights of growing up. Now, Doctor, I picked as a subject here nonviolence and the Montgomery boycott, and some of it will overlap with Willie's, but nevertheless, the main thing that I came away with is that Dr. King was a man of love, and his desire was to have freedom and justice for all of us, but he wanted to do that in a nonviolent way. So he was really into how to achieve this nonviolence as a part of his overall strategy to making folks better and getting a just outcome. One of the first things Dr. King did was in his freshman year in college, he read an essay by Henry David Thoreau, Civil Disobedience. And civil disobedience to him looked like a good way of furthering what he believed in, and so he adopted that. And also he attended the Grosser Theological Seminary, and there he heard a speech by someone there, but the speech was on Gandhi. So Gandhi was really in his mind early on, and he adopted Gandhi as the person that he wanted to mimic most, and used the non-violence approach to things in order to get social change. And one of the things that Dr. King did was in using the doctrine of love and capturing Gandhi's method of using nonviolence to achieve justice for all people. He was very, very intrigued and delighted to be a part of, or to use Dr. Gandhi's philosophy. And now he was so impressed with Dr. Gandhi, with Dr. Gandhi, beg your pardon. He was so impressed with Gandhi and Gandhi's philosophy, and that he actually made a trip to India to study and spend some time with Gandhi so that he would really connect. One of the things that Dr. King left with us was a 6 principles. Yes, thank you. 6 principles of nonviolence. And nonviolence to him was the right way to go. He had, the first principle, and I'm not too good at this, but let's see what we go. Oh, yeah, okay. The first principle was one can resist evil without resorting to violence. And so he was very, very keen on that. Second one here is nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding of the opponent without humiliating them. So one of the things, we sometimes have a good intent, but often we will try to influence people at the same time if they're doing something really dumb or what have you. We humiliate them. So he pushed it, try to do that without the humiliation part of it. And he said, evil, the third one is evil itself should be opposed, not the people committing it. I think that that's very good. The commitment of nonviolence must be willing to suffer without retaliation. So if you going to participate and do it, and we've seen that you can't retaliate, even though in the days and the time when I grew up, being young, kind of youngster, young, you always wanted to fight back, and that was not something that you could do and achieve your end goal. And then nonviolence, resistance, avoid external physical violence and internal violence of the spirit. And number 6, the violence of resistor must have a deep faith in the future. And the last part is very nice. The universe is on the side of justice. So things will take time, but that's all right. I dwelled on the nonviolence part of Dr. King, but and he had honed this very well. And if we get back to the Montgomery bus boycott, because the Montgomery bus boycott gave him the vehicle that he really needed to really launch and to gain the publicity and to gain the publicity, both not nationally and internationally. So it really worked out extremely well. And I won't repeat, but Rosa Parks was the lady that actually did the bus sit-in. So she was arrested, booked, and she was the person that allowed King to file the lawsuit and in the sit-in, which started. Give me 1 second, just get caught up a little bit. And the sit-in started in December of 1955. Rosa Parks was the participant. Dr. King, along with the locals in Montgomery, they had the Montgomery Improvement Association, and Dr. King was the first president of that association, and they did an outstanding job of organizing the folks, and the outcome, of course, we know, was that the Supreme Court outlawed discrimination on public transportation, and so we ended up with, in about a year's time, so it was, I think, the 20th of December 1956 when the ruling came down. I'm sorry, when the boycott ended and the busing was over. So one of the things that came out of that, and we know well, is that Rosa Parks was a really an excellent lady, outstanding lady, and she was really, we called her the mother of, we call her the mother of the civil rights movement. Okay, that concludes my.
Looking at the 6 points, and I'm not going to assume the politics of anybody in the room. Yeah. Looking at the 6 points, it's striking how few people follow this, and it's almost embarrassing to see people, resorting to violence and name calling and innuendo and stuff. It's almost unsettling.
Even back in the day, I remember that, Dr. King, even though he was nonviolent, there were, we had the Black Panthers, we had other groups who wanted justice, who wanted change. But, when the other day, when you hurt other folks, it's hard to get such a non-violent approach unless you have overwhelming force. Then you can force change, but you really don't want to do it that way. I mean, that's we see what happens. You have to take that route.
Our next is Mr. Scott, and you'll notice Mr. Scott has a special notation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm William Scott, and you can call me Scotty. I was born in the South in Hampton, Virginia, but actually I've spent most of my life in the North, right here in New Jersey, actually. Okay. The topic that I picked is Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham, Alabama jail. I'm just going to give you a synopsis of the rationale behind the letter. He had been jailed in Birmingham due to a protest that he had led in Alabama. While he was in jail, he was made aware of an open letter that was published by a group of 8 white clergy members. The letter basically urged King to refrain from using protests and demonstrations to achieve his end. Okay, they were suggesting that he pursue his goal, and that was really the elimination of segregation and discrimination, etc., via local negotiations and the courts. Well, of course, King already knew that that wasn't working. So, as a retort or response to that open letter, he put out the letter from the Birmingham jail. Now, the gist of the letter was that nonviolent protests and demonstrations will be continued as just means to fight unjust laws that promoted racism in the form of segregation and discrimination. Okay, one of the things I would like to add is that I had the opportunity of seeing Dr. King in person and hearing one of his presentations. And that was when I was a freshman at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and I was in December 1956. Okay. I would like to go a little bit further just to give you one example of discrimination that I experienced in my lifetime. In the time frame from 1962, I was an officer in the U.S. Army Signal Corps. I ended up being stationed in the Pentagon right there in Washington, D.C. The office that I worked in was the Army's equivalent to the Federal Communications Commission. We assigned radio frequencies to the Army units and dealt with any interference, or radio frequency interference. Well, what happened is that an interference complaint came in from the Carnegie Institute, I guess of Pittsburgh, but they had a radio frequency astronomy test site in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Okay, and their experiment was being interfered with by a Army Nike site nearby radar. It was the radar that was causing the interference to the test site. Well, the top civilian in our office took me and another lieutenant out there to Gaithersburg to investigate. I was black, and the other two gentlemen were white. Okay, we go out and investigate, and after our investigation, lunchtime came up. So the civilian said, okay, let's go to a AAA certified restaurant in the the Maryland area because they didn't discriminate. Well, we get to the restaurant, and as soon as I come to the doorway of the restaurant, the hostess sees me, and she says, no, no, no. So we ended up eating lunch at the Chock Full of Nuts in Maryland. And if you probably remember, Jackie Robinson was on the management staff of Chock Full of Nuts. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenneth Morgan. I am from the heart of Dixie. So you may say, well, what is that? Well, that's the state of Alabama. That's what we put on our tags in Alabama, the heart of Dixie. My topic, excuse me, Fred, can you change the screen there?
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, my problem is, okay, all right, my topic is Our God is Marching On. That's the speech that Dr. King made on March 25th, 1965, in front of the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. And basically, I'm talking about the march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. Now, most people don't realize that there were 3 marches that took place from Selma to Montgomery. The first march is probably the march that you all are familiar with. They called it Bloody Sunday. That's the march that John Lewis led on March the 7th, 1965. At that march, a young man by the name of Jimmy Lee Jackson was seriously injured, and he died 8 days later as a result of that march. So Dr. King came to Selma, Alabama, and he said, well, I'm going to do a march. I'm going to lead the march. So on March the 9th, he attempted to lead a march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Unfortunately, he did not have any protection, and as a result, the police officers in Selma basically threatened the marchers, so he turned around because he didn't want to see any more injuries. So what Dr. King did is he went out and contacted the President of the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And President Johnson authorized troops, the National Guard troops, and FBI agents to cover Dr. King in that march. So Dr. King was successful in marching from Selma to Montgomery. Now that's about a 50 to 60 mile march. So, but Dr. King was successful, and at that march, he gave a speech. And this was on March 25th. And this is the speech that he gave. Our God is marching on. Now, the purpose of this speech was to talk about racial and social justice, and that's what he talked about. But he also said that the movement is still strong, and we must continue to move forward in order to get voting rights, in order to tear down segregation, and in order to improve the poverty status of Black Americans in this country. So, Dr. King was very eloquent in his speech, and one of the things he said was, "How long, not long." That was one of the quotes that Fred mentioned when he listed a bunch of the quotes up there. How long, not long. So a lot of bills were passed in the 60s. The Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act was passed. But over time, a lot of those bills have been reduced in their significance. So now on this picture that you see up here, I am standing with one of Dr. King's lieutenants, C.T. Vivian. Now, C.T. Vivian was responsible for the sit-ins, the freedom rides. He coordinated all of those things during the civil rights struggle. Now, Dr. King had about 7 or 8 primary lieutenants. Dr. Vivian was one of those lieutenants. We attended the John Lewis pilgrimage in 2015, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first Selma to Montgomery March. And that's where we were. We were just right off of the Edmund Pettus Bridge during that time. I attended 2 of those pilgrimages. And this particular one, because it was the 50th anniversary celebrating the march from Selma to Montgomery, President Obama was a guest speaker at this event, and George Bush was also one of the speakers at this event. You had a lot of people from Congress, senators, celebrities. They all attended that march, and what we did is we reacted the march that took place. Now, naturally, the march was led by the celebrities, President Obama and George Bush and all the rest of them, but it was a really historic day for everyone. I just want to get back to C.T. Vivian just a little. C.T. Vivian was behind the scenes operating. And in 2013, President Obama awarded him the President Medal of Freedom. Most of the lieutenants that served with Dr. King were very outstanding orators in themselves. They just did a movie about one of them, Baynard Rustin. I don't know if you have Netflix, Prime, one of those streaming services. They just did a movie about him. And I believe Coleman, does anybody remember Coleman's last name? But anyway, he was the actor that played Baynard Rustin in that movie. And he received several recognitions for his performance. But some of his lieutenants, Ralph Abernathy, that you may know, Joseph Lowry, Fred Shuttlesworth, Stanley Leverson, and naturally C.T. Vivian. And Andrew Young was also one of the individuals that was one of Dr. King's primary lieutenants. Now, as far as me meeting Dr. King, I did not meet Dr. King, but my mother did. My mother was a student at Alabama State in 1955, and she participated in the Montgomery boycott in 1955, and she informed us that she did not ride the bus because, we were protesting riding buses because of what they did to Rosa Parks, but they would have to walk to school and they would have to walk to town in order to shop in some of the stores in town. The good news is that Alabama State is within the city limits of Montgomery, so they didn't have a long ways to walk, but they did walk to and from the campus, and they did that for a year, and it was a successful boycott. So that is my report that I would like to give, but the bottom line here is that Dr. King felt in giving this speech that we need to fight for social and racial justice. Unfortunately, we're still fighting that battle. Thank you.
So my name is Donald Blue, and I'm glad I can be able to give this little talk about my experiences at working here at CS&TA Lab and how Dr. King impacted my subsequent career. I joined the Army in April of 1953 and initially stationed at Fort Eisenhower, which was Camp Gordon at the time that I was there. It was located in Augusta, Georgia, highly segregated place. And it was my first experience of actually going to the South. And it was overall an eye-opener. They had a USO club in Augusta set up for black soldiers. And when I went to town, that's where I went, because I didn't feel welcome anyplace else in Augusta. And one time I went there, I saw a white policeman beating a black soldier, and that was not good. So I tended to stay on base because of that, and to avoid that situation. I flew home for a brief vacation, a long weekend, from the Augusta airport, and I went in and sat in the waiting area. Well, apparently I sat in the wrong waiting area. I sat in the white waiting area, and the passengers in there looked at me kind of funny, but I did not move. I stayed there. I subsequently, after I left there, the next major event, I got a job at the CS&TA laboratory in 1964. And my first TDY, I went to Texas Instruments in Dallas, Texas. I went with a group, and I was the only black member of the group. I couldn't stay in the same hotel that the members stayed in, and I had to stay in a black-owned motel. It was nice, but it wasn't a good feeling for me. I took many trips out west while I worked for CS&TA Laboratory. I took most of them by car, and I took my family with me. And I, in order to avoid a situation like I had in Dallas, I stayed in the Holiday Inns, and didn't have any problem because I made reservations in advance for each stop. So that worked out fine for me. In 1968, I transferred to a job in Germany. And while I was there, in fact, the night that they had the hail and farewell for my family and I in the Officers Club, the word came down that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And it was horrible. Soldiers weren't happy, the civilians weren't happy, and everything. And that's about it. Martin Luther King was an inspiration to me. His efforts by protests, marching, sermons, and so forth were served as a guide for me in my future endeavors. Are there any questions? Okay.
Here's Dr. King's final speech, and I'll see if it'll play for us.
Has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. We've got some...
Why did Dr. King say this? What did he know? Well, there were lots of threats against him, and on his plane ride to Atlanta, they had to search his plane for bombs. It got that thorough all the time, and so I guess that evening he must have faced the realization that he wasn't gonna, somebody was gonna get him, and what a shame, but what do you say? We can't change that. He left a wife and 4 children, and he left us a bequeath of his special words, and they show how words can save a nation. And I just want to give one more little thing of how Dr. King used repeated things, and you'll hear the word serve a number of times, and let's see if I got this audio going good. Oh, I didn't get connected. Try again.
AV crew.
Yeah. You know, just like a little puppy, it worked at home. The background music is added. Notice the repetition here.
If you want, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. This morning, the thing that I like about it, by giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. Because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the Kepler theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. Only in your heart full of grace. So generated by love, you can be that servant.
Well, I got the kind event to get to see Senator Cory Booker give a talk a number of years ago. And the title of his talk was, "Son, you were born on third base," right? And it was him talking about how, he was a rising star. And the elders among him would say, hey, you're great, you have a future, but a lot of people worked hard before you were even born to get you here. So you were born on third base. And today a lot of people are born on first base. Now notice, it's not home, but I'm hoping our talk and other remembrance will show people to appreciate Dr. King's work and those who followed him, because you can't have a success without followers who care and want to bring the message through. So I think we at InfoAge, we serve, and we do the best we can with what we have.